I wonder whether you two have got your popcorn ready for this afternoon, because this Dominic Cummings...
morning.
Oh, it's this morning.
Yeah, 9:30.
Goodness, we better get that popcorn in the microwave sooner than I thought. Yes, OK, so 4 hours. It's going to stretch on into the afternoon.
These occasions, I think Kevin will probably agree with this, often are let down. So there's lots of hype, lots of build-up, and in the end you think, oh, was that it? I don't think this is going to be a letdown.
Not when we've got a headline like "Get Witty to inject me with COVID live on TV to show it's safe."
Yeah, and the question is, who do you believe more, Boris Johnson or Dominic Cummings? And most people find that quite a difficult question to answer. I think Dominic Cummings' problem is people remember Barnard Castle. They don't forgive him for that. There was a poll out over the weekend that showed that 78% of people wouldn't believe Dominic Cummings. Was it 52% or something wouldn't believe Boris Johnson? So he is going to have explosive allegations. Will they stick? Well, I don't know.
Well, there are a fair number of allegations. Let's just look at two of them, Kevin. Cummings will allege that Boris Johnson said COVID is only killing 80-year-olds. He talked about COVID as being Kung flu, offered to be injected with it live on TV to show it's nothing to be scared of.
Yeah, I mean, look, these are very serious allegations, and Dominic Cummings has to put up or shut up now, and it will be a credibility battle between the two. In some ways, both deserve to lose. What did Cummings do when he was there at the time? But Boris Johnson, it kind of shows a rather flippant approach, an incompetent approach, didn't take it seriously early on. We know he missed 5 Cobra meetings, whether he was writing his book on Shakespeare or whether he's just preparing his divorce and next marriage is open to dispute. But Cummings himself is an unsympathetic character, and it's what evidence he has in terms of documents and whether other people will support him. That's what it will come down to. But there's a big vaccine bubble now that's buoying Boris Johnson. You see it in the opinion polls. People are very grateful they're getting their jabs. Will that be burst if he's been held responsible for so many deaths? Thousands of deaths, arguably tens of thousands of deaths.
Ian, Dominic Cummings might be an unsympathetic character, and we might all have had a go at him about the Barnard Castle trip, even leaving London, frankly, to go to Durham in the first place. But he was very, very close to the Prime Minister. And there is a sort of irony that, firstly, that he's arguing about, we didn't go into lockdown soon enough, and yet he appeared to break the lockdown rules. But also, what is his motivation? Because he was right there at the heart of things. So if things were going wrong, we know how much influence he had. Surely he's pointing to his own failure.
Well, if you read his Twitter feed over the weekend, 53 tweets, one after the other, machine gun Twitter, really. You think, well, were you actually there? You aren't a commentator. You were in the centre of it. You were known as the Deputy Prime Minister. You were the most influential person in the government. And yet, apparently, all your advice was ignored by the Prime Minister. Now, on the other hand, there is one thing that we do know. At the meeting of SAGE that he attended, remember there was a lot of controversy over him attending a meeting of SAGE, on the 17th of March, he was questioning the scientists, well, why aren't we going into lockdown now? So there is a little bit of consistency over his argument. He was pushing for an early lockdown. Now, the Prime Minister, if you're told that you've got to basically shut down the economy, I think any Prime Minister is going to rail against that. And it's quite clear in retrospect, Boris Johnson railed against that for too long. Quite happy to accept that. So, I mean, the key thing today is, are these MPs capable of questioning Dominic Cummings in the way that they need to?
Who are they?
Dominic Cummings does not like Greg Clark, who's the chairman of the Select Committee on Science. He's not very keen on Jeremy Hunt either. In fact, Dominic Cummings hates politicians, and you wonder why has he done the job for so long surrounding himself with politicians. So there's going to be a few fireworks.
But the vulnerable part for Johnson isn't the first lockdown, it's the second lockdown in the autumn, when it's quite clear he did delay and he did dither, and most deaths have been since then. So, yeah, the first one, doing that initial moment, you could see other countries were struggling.
There is also...
the second.
Yeah, there is also possibly a rabbit in the hat to appear, because Dominic Cummings says, I've got the only copy of a crucial historical document from COVID decision-making. Hang on a second, you think, well, A, it could be very interesting. But
Yep.
on the other hand, if this is from very important decision-making, surely other people have copies of it as well.
I would have thought so. The Cabinet Office have been, under the direction of the Chief Civil Servant, the Cabinet Secretary, have been looking what documents he might have. He might have taken with him. You're not supposed to do it, but everybody does, apparently. So how explosive is it? Now, he's clearly built himself up, Dominic Cummings, with all these tweets, all these threats. In fact, this document, at one point, he threatened to auction it off. So he's got to deliver in that way, and he's raised the bar very high for himself. But there will be other copies of these documents, of course, unless they were handwritten and he wrote it himself. Other people will have them if they are notes and minutes.
The nightmare for Boris Johnson is that he reveals some rabbit out of the hat at about 11:45, just before Prime Minister's questions. Maybe he's got a recording, for example, of Boris Johnson saying something untoward. I mean, wouldn't be unheard of, would it? I mean, that would be completely incendiary.
That's right, because when we discussed a couple of weeks ago the allegation that Boris had said something about let the bodies pile high, it was said that, at the moment, that's a rumour, disputed, denied. But if there is actually an audio recording of anything like that, then that becomes less about Dominic Cummings and his credibility and just puts all the pressure on
Boris
Prime
Johnson
Minister.
in Parliament at Prime Minister's questions denied he said it. He flatly denied he said it. Now, look, he's a proven liar. He's got a long track record of lying, but it's always more serious if you lie in the House of Commons because the Speaker could theoretically call you to demand that you apologise, and that would be utterly humiliating for a Prime
let's remember,
Minister.
disgruntled employees sometimes do record things because they might think, oh, this might be useful a bit later. I don't know whether he's got a recording, but let's not rule it out.